My name is Darius Thurman. I'm a long-haul truck driver, and I live in a small, quiet town outside of Augusta, Georgia. For many years, I drove coast to coast, hauling freight across the entire country, while my heart stayed back home with my wife, Nia, and our son, Ethan. If you're just starting to watch this story now, take a deep breath, because what I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined would happen in my own house, under my own roof, while I was out on the road trying to provide a better life for my family. What I found out completely changed my life, and maybe it will change yours too, especially if you're a parent who has to be away from your kids for work. Sometimes we think we know the people closest to us, but there are hidden things that only come to light when we least expect them. If you're connecting with my story, please hit the like button to bring a little sunshine to this father's heart. Subscribe to the Long Haul Dad's channel so you don't miss my next life stories. And tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from and what time it is there right now. It makes me really happy to know which corner of the country or the world is listening to me and what time of day it is for you. It almost started when I noticed a shift in Ethan's behavior. He had always been a cheerful kid, the type who would run and hug me the moment I pulled up from a trip, the one who'd tell me everything that happened at school, the one who laughed out loud watching cartoons on TV. My son was pure energy, pure joy. At least that's how I remembered him. It was after a longer trip, almost 3 weeks on the road, that I realized something was different. When I got home, Ethan barely came out of his room to greet me. When I went in to see him, he gave me a hug, but he seemed distant, with a look in his eyes I had never seen before. I figured he was just tired. Maybe he was sleepy. "Everything okay, son?" I asked, ruffling his hair like I always did. "Yeah, Dad," he replied quietly, not meeting my eyes. Nia appeared in the doorway. "He's been like that these past few days. A little quiet. It must just be a phase. He's growing up. Come on, dinner's ready." That night, I watched my son during dinner. He ate slowly, his head bowed. I noticed he would glance at his mother sometimes, as if he was afraid of doing something wrong. And the strangest part, he had dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept well in a long time. "How's school going, buddy?" I tried to strike up a conversation. "Fine," he answered without looking up. "And what about your friends? Is your pal Kevin still coming over to play?" That's when I saw Nia, staring intently at Ethan, who swallowed hard before answering. After dinner, I went to tuck him in. When we were alone, I sat on the edge of the bed and asked him again if everything was okay. That's when he grabbed my hand and said something that chilled me to the bone. "Dad, don't tell Mom I talked to you." "Talked about what, son?" I asked, my heart racing. But before he could answer, Nia appeared in the doorway. "Time for bed, Ethan. School's early tomorrow." The way my son flinched on the bed when he saw his mother, that wasn't normal. I kissed his forehead and left, but my head was already spinning 1,000 miles an hour. I couldn't sleep that night. Something was very wrong. I could feel it, and I decided to pay closer attention over the next few days before heading back out on the highway. In the days that followed, I observed everything more carefully. At school, his teacher told me he was quieter, less involved in activities. At home, he spent most of his time alone in his room, drawing or reading. Whenever I asked if everything was all right, he always said yes. But his eyes told a different story. One afternoon, while Nia was at the grocery store, I sat with him in the living room and tried to talk. At first, he resisted, but little by little, he started to open up a bit. Buddy, you can tell me anything. You know Dad will always protect you. He was silent for a moment, wringing his hands nervously. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, I don't like it when you travel, Dad. Why, son? Doesn't Mom take good care of you? No. He didn't elaborate. He just lowered his head. I pushed a little more. Ethan, did something happen when Dad was away? That's when he started to cry softly. I pulled him close for a hug and felt his small body trembling. Between sobs, he whispered, Dad, please, don't tell Mom. I cried. That broke me inside. What kind of fear was this? Why would my son be so guarded around his own mother? Ethan, did Mom do something to you? Can you tell me? Son? Just then, we heard the key turn in the front door lock. Ethan immediately pulled away from me, wiped his tears with his hands, and completely changed his demeanor. It was as if he'd put on a mask. I'm home, Nia announced, walking in with the shopping bags. Seeing us in the living room, she smiled. But I sensed something unsettling about that smile. What are you two up to? Just talking, I replied, trying to sound natural. Right, son? Ethan nodded without saying a word and asked to go to the bathroom. When he came back, his eyes were still red from crying, but he tried to hide it. During dinner that night, I watched the interaction between my son and my wife. The way he avoided looking at her, how he measured every word before speaking, how his small shoulders seemed to carry an invisible weight. Naya, on the other hand, acted normally, asking about school, commenting on the weather, just like any mother would. Later, as we were getting ready for bed, I questioned Nia about Ethan's behavior. Don't you think he's different? Quieter? More withdrawn? She shrugged as she put lotion on her face. It's a phase, Darius. Kids go through this. One day they're joyful, the next they're more introverted. It's normal. But those dark circles, it looks like he hasn't been sleeping well. He's been having some nightmares, she replied, not looking directly at me. Kids do that. And why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to worry you while you were on the road. You have enough on your mind, right? The explanation seemed reasonable, but something inside me remained unsettled. That night, I woke up several times thinking about my son, how different he was, the fear in his eyes. And it was during one of those times that I realized Nia wasn't in bed. I slowly got up and stepped out of the room. The house was silent, with only the small hallway light on. That's when I saw it. The door to Ethan's room was slightly ajar, and Nia was inside. I froze in the hallway, trying not to make a sound, trying to understand what was happening. After about 30 minutes, she left the room, quietly closing the door. What were you doing in his room at this hour? I asked, startling her. Darius, you scared me, she exclaimed, clutching her chest. I went to check if he was sleeping okay, because of the nightmares. 30 minutes to check if he's sleeping okay? He woke up. He was agitated. I stayed there calming him down. Why? What kind of question is that? Sorry, I replied, trying not to show my suspicion. I was just worried. We went back to bed, but I couldn't sleep anymore. The next morning, after Nia took Ethan to school, I went straight to his room. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew I needed to find a clue about what was going on. That's when I saw an old teddy bear I had given him years ago, lying beneath the bed. The bear that Ethan loved so much was now torn in a few places, with the stuffing coming out. That puzzled me. My son had always taken excellent care of his toys. When I picked it up, I noticed something that disturbed me even more. There were dark stains on the fabric that looked like dried tears. The next night, I stayed awake on purpose. And once again, around 11 o'clock, Nia quietly slipped out of our bed and went to Ethan's room. This time, I waited a few minutes and crept up to the door, trying to hear what was going on inside. That's when I heard the muffled sound of crying. My son was sobbing quietly, as if he was terrified of making noise. "Discipline," I heard Nia say, in a low, firm tone. "It's for your own good." What was happening behind that door? What kind of discipline made my son cry in the middle of the night? It was in that moment that I made a decision that would change our lives forever. The next morning, using the excuse that I needed to take care of some company business, I left the house early. My head was buzzing with thoughts and doubts. Was I overreacting? Was it really just a phase, as Nia claimed? But that muffled crying, that fear in my son's eyes, I couldn't shake it. I drove to a store downtown and walked into an electronics shop. A young man served me, and I explained that I needed a small, discreet camera that was easy to install and that I could access from my cell phone. "Is this for home security, sir?" the clerk asked. "Yes," I replied, feeling a knot in my throat. "For my son's security." I left the store with a micro camera that could be easily hidden. The clerk explained how to install it and how to access it through the app on my phone. I never thought I'd reach the point of installing a hidden camera in my own house to monitor my own wife, but my son's well-being was more important than anything else. When I got back home, Nia was in the kitchen fixing lunch. Ethan was at school. It was the perfect time. "Did you get what you needed?" she asked, stirring a pot on the stove. "Yeah, I got everything sorted," I lied, slipping the bag with the camera into my jacket pocket. "I'm going to take a shower." I went into Ethan's room and looked around for the best place to install the camera. I needed an angle that would capture the whole room but wouldn't be easy to spot. Finally, I decided to place it on the bookshelf between some toys. It was small enough to go unnoticed, but well positioned to capture everything that happened in the room. Some toys. It was small enough to go unnoticed, but well positioned to capture everything that happened in the room. With trembling hands, I quickly set up the camera and tested it on my phone. It worked perfectly. I felt a mixture of relief and guilt. Relief that I might finally discover what was happening, and guilt for invading the privacy of my own home. But something told me I was doing the right thing. That night, during dinner, I tried to act normal, but my stomach was churning. Ethan remained quiet, answering only when spoken to directly, always with that apprehensive glance toward his mother. Nia, for her part, seemed perfectly normal, talking about the neighbors, shopping, and plans for the weekend. "I have to head back out on the road the day after tomorrow," I commented, watching their reactions. "Long trip down to Texas." I saw Ethan's shoulders slump slightly, and a nearly imperceptible flicker in Nia's eyes. "How long this time?" she asked, with a calmness that now seemed suspicious. "At least 2 weeks, maybe more." Ethan dropped his head further, picking at his food with his fork. Nia smiled faintly. "We'll miss you, won't we, Ethan?" He nodded without saying anything. After dinner, I went to put him to bed. When we were alone, he tightly grabbed my hand. "Dad, do you really have to travel?" The desperation in his voice broke my heart. "Yes, son, I need to work. But look, it will go by fast. And I'll be back soon, okay?" He didn't answer. He just hugged me tightly, as if he never wanted to let go. In that moment, I was certain I had done the right thing by installing the camera. The next day, I spent as much time as possible with Ethan. I took him out for ice cream after school. We played catch in the yard. We watched his favorite cartoon on TV. I wanted him to know I was there for him, that he could trust me. That night, before he fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried one more time to get him to talk. "Ethan, You know you can tell me anything, right? Even if someone tells you not to. He quickly looked towards the door, as if checking if we were really alone. I know, Dad, he whispered. Is there something happening that you want to tell me? Something that makes you sad or scared? His eyes welled up with tears, but he held them back. I can't, Dad. Why not, son? Why? He started, but his voice failed. Just then, we heard footsteps in the hall. It was Nia approaching. It's bedtime for you too, she said, standing in the doorway. You need your rest for your trip tomorrow, Darius. I gave Ethan one last hug and whispered in his ear, I love you, son. I will always protect you. When I left the room, Nia followed me back to our bed. We lay down, and after a while, I pretended to be asleep. About an hour later, when she thought I was deeply sleeping, she quietly got up and left the room. I quickly reached for my cell phone and opened the camera app. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it would beat right out of my chest. On the screen, I saw Nia entering Ethan's room. She gently closed the door behind her. Ethan was lying down, but awake, as if he was already expecting the nightly visit. I saw him shrink under the covers, pulling the blanket up to his chin. Mom, please, he whispered. I was good today. You know that doesn't matter, right? Nia replied in a voice I'd never heard from her before, cold, distant. This is for your education. That's when I saw something that froze my blood. Nia pulled a roll end of masking tape from the pocket of her robe. In that moment, I felt my entire body go cold. On the small phone screen, I watched my wife, my son's mother, move towards the bed with the tape in her hand. Ethan shrank even further, his little eyes wide with fear. Please, Mom, he pleaded softly. I promise I'll be better. Shh, she hushed, putting a finger to her lips. The neighbors can't hear, remember? And neither can Dad. With a quick motion, she tore off a piece of tape and, without any hesitation, stuck it over my son's mouth. My Ethan, my 8-year-old boy, having his voice silenced in such a cruel way. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. That's better, Nia said in a low tone. Now, we won't bother anyone with crying, right? Then, she pulled a hard-soled slipper out of her other robe pocket. Ethan, still with his mouth covered, tried to plead with his eyes. Silent tears began to roll down his little face. This is for your own good, she continued with that icy voice I wouldn't have recognized as belonging to the woman I married. One day, you'll thank me for teaching you discipline. What happened next was one of the hardest things I've ever had to witness in my entire life. Nia started hitting my son with the slipper. These weren't light taps or disciplinary spanks like some parents give. They were hard, repeated blows, all while she whispered for him to learn his lesson. Ethan couldn't scream because of the tape, but his body convulsed with every hit. I watched his small shoulders shaking with silent sobs, tears soaking his pillow. And worst of all, I saw a mixture of pain and resignation in his eyes, as if this was a known routine. I wanted to rush out of my room, burst into his, and make it stop immediately. But a part of me knew I needed concrete proof of what was happening. I needed to document that cruelty to ensure Ethan would never go through this again. So, with a shattered heart, I continued to record. This is for talking too much with your father today, I heard Nia say, between the blows. You know you can't tell him our business. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she stopped. Ethan was huddled in the bed, his little body trembling with mute sobs. Remember our deal? Nia said, leaning over him. If you tell your father anything, I'll know, and it will be much worse." Then she ripped the tape off his mouth, making him wince in pain. "Now dry your face and go to sleep. And I don't want to hear a sound. Understand?" Ethan nodded, terrified. Naya smoothed the blanket over him, as if nothing had happened, as if that gesture could erase the violence from moments before. "Good night, son," she said, then left the room, gently closing the door. In the darkness of my room, with the phone still in my hand and the images of what I had just witnessed searing into my memory, I cried silently. How hadn't I seen it before? How could I have left my son vulnerable for so long? The trips, the long absences. How long had this been going on? Minutes later, Nia returned to our bed. I feigned sleep, but every fiber of my being wanted to confront her, to scream, to ask how she was capable of doing that to our child. But I knew I needed to be strategic. Ethan was in danger, and I needed to act cautiously to protect him properly. I spent the whole night awake, checking the camera periodically. I watched dark circles and a defeated expression. My heart sank. I tried to act normally, but all I could think about were the images from the night before. "Did you sleep well, son?" I asked, trying not to show what I was feeling. "Yes, Dad," he replied automatically, not looking me in the eye. "Ethan?" I called, crouching down to his level. "Look at me." He slowly raised his eyes, and I could see all the fear and pain contained there. "I love you very much," I said, holding his small hands, "and I'm going to do everything to protect you. Do you believe me?" For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by fear when we heard Naya approaching. "Good morning," she said, entering the kitchen as if nothing had happened. "Already having breakfast? That's great." I watched as she poured coffee and spread butter on toast, acting like the loving mother I always thought she was, the same person who, hours earlier, had tortured our son in the silence of the night. "What time are you leaving today?" she asked casually. "After lunch," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to take advantage of the daylight on the highway." "Very good," she smiled. "Don't worry about a thing. We'll be fine. Won't we, Ethan?" My son just nodded without saying anything. After breakfast, while Nia took Ethan to school, I rushed to make a copy of the video from the night before. I needed to ensure that evidence was safe. I transferred the files to a flash drive and also uploaded them to cloud storage. I couldn't risk losing that terrible but crucial evidence. When I got back on the road that afternoon, it was far from a normal work trip. Every mile that took me away from home was agony, knowing my son would be alone with his abuser. But now I had a plan, and the camera would remain vigilant, recording everything, so I could act with the full force of the law. That night, I parked the truck at a rest stop and, with a heavy heart, accessed the camera app. Just as I suspected, the scene from the night before was repeating itself. Naya entered the room, closed the door, and the ritual of abuse began again. "Cry quietly," I heard her say, as she applied the tape to my son's mouth. "Your father can never know this." That's when I made a decision that would change our lives forever. I couldn't wait until I returned from the trip. My son would not spend another night in that house. With trembling hands and tears in my eyes, I called my brother-in-law, Nia's brother. Kevin Ellington was always a stand-up man, always loved Ethan dearly, and even though he was her brother, I trusted him. "Darius, everything okay?" "You don't usually call this late," he answered, sounding concerned. "Kevin, I need your help," I said, trying to control my voice. "It's an emergency. It's about Ethan." "What happened? Is he sick?" "No. It's worse. I need you to go to my house right now and get Ethan out of there. Invent any excuse. Say you need to take him to your place for some reason. Anything. Just get my son away from Nia, please. Darius, you're scaring me. What is going on? Kevin, I don't have time to explain everything right now. I'm on the highway, almost 8 hours from home. Can I trust you? There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then, in a serious voice, he replied, Yes, you can trust me. I'll go get Ethan right now. Thank you, I sighed, feeling a slight sense of relief. When you have him safe, call me, and please don't tell Nia anything. I hung up and stared at my phone, praying that Kevin could get my son out of that house as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, I got back on the road, driving straight home. I didn't care about the delivery, the job, nothing. I just wanted to get home and protect my son. An hour and a half later, my phone rang. It was Kevin. Darius, I have Ethan here at my house. It was Kevin. Darius, I have Ethan here at my house. I told Nia I needed his help assembling a surprise gift for Chloe. Since her birthday is coming up, she was a little suspicious, but she let him come. We're home with Chloe. I closed my eyes for a moment, silently giving thanks. How is he? Quiet, kind of scared. He's asked for you several times. Can I talk to him? Sure, hold on a minute. I heard some shuffling, and then my son's voice. Dad? Hey, buddy, I said, feeling the emotions swell up inside me. Are you okay there with Uncle Kevin? I'm okay, he replied softly. Dad, are you coming to get me? I am, son. I'm driving home right now. I'll get there as fast as I can. It's okay. In the meantime, you stay there with your uncle. He's going to take care of you. Okay, he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. Dad, thank you. That simple thank you broke my heart. My son was thanking me for getting him out of an abusive situation and if he didn't deserve to be protected, as if being treated with dignity was a favor. I love you so much, Ethan. We'll be together soon. After speaking with my son, Kevin got back on the phone. Darius, are you going to tell me what's going on? Ethan is terrified of going home. What did Nia do? Kevin, I know this is hard to believe, but your sister has been physically abusing Ethan. I have video proof. There was a long silence. This can't be true. Nia wouldn't do that. I didn't want to believe it either, I replied, my voice breaking. But I saw it with my own eyes. I installed a camera in his room because I noticed something was wrong. She waits for me to fall asleep, or when I'm traveling, and goes into his room in the middle of the night, tapes his mouth shut so he won't make noise, and hits him. They're not disciplinary spanks, Kevin. It's pure violence. Oh, my God, he whispered, clearly shaken. I have the videos. I'll show you when I get there. For now, I just need to know my son is safe. He's safe here with me and Chloe. You can rest easy. Nia has already called twice, asking when I'm bringing him back. What did you tell her? That I needed his help assembling a surprise piece of furniture for Chloe, and that we were going to stop by the burger spot afterward. I said I'd bring him back later. I don't know if she believed me, but it's the best I could come up with. Thank you, Kevin. Seriously. I should arrive home in the morning. I'll come straight to your house. I won't even stop by my place first. We'll be waiting. And Darius, I don't even know what to say. I never imagined my sister was capable of something like that. Me neither, I replied, feeling a knot in my throat. Me neither. I continued driving all night without stopping for rest. Every moment, I thought about my son, about the scars, those months or years of abuse would leave on him. How could a mother do that to her own child? How had I not noticed it sooner? As I drove, I remembered the small signs I had ignored. The dark circles, the withdrawn behavior, the fear in his eyes, Nia's excuses about discipline and education. I remembered all of the times Ethan tried to tell me something but stopped when Nia walked into the room. All the times he begged me not to travel, to stay home. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, I stopped at a gas station to refuel and wash my face. I was physically and emotionally exhausted. While I waited for the attendant to finish pumping gas, I decided to check in once more on what was happening back home. I accessed the camera on my phone and saw that Ethan's room was